Okay, we'll get to the questions, and I'm going to go back this way. First question is this. It's safe to say, and I think most of the folks would agree with me in this, the biggest fear the folks in this room have about this race is that somehow Edwards might be elected. That said, how are you going to beat Edwards and save our sanity?
No, it is really amazing to see what's happening. To see the newspapers around the country reporting that we have an 86-year-old convicted felon who is running for Congress and is up in the polls. That's unbelievable, and it casts an awful reputation for our state and our country. I believe that, number one, I believe that voters in Louisiana are smart. I do. I believe voters in Louisiana are a lot smarter than the possibility of electing a man who has been through the things that he has done to our state and the trust that he violated the citizens of Louisiana. We are going to make this race more substantive. We're not going to have one electors. That's not what this race is about. This race is about moving Louisiana in the right direction, moving this country in the right direction. And clearly, the direction this country is moving in today is not appropriate. You really have to question, I think, the sanity of a man who, and I'll tell you, I'm a father, I have 3 kids, and thinking about not being able to share years and years, decades and decades with my kids is an awful thought. And to think that somebody at 86 years old would have 2 kids, Trina and you, look, you're taking that opportunity away from that child, and taking an opportunity for yourself to actually be a father. And I'll just go back and say that the voters in Louisiana are smarter than that. I have no doubt that at the end of the day, this campaign is going to fail, and that we will see a conservative Republican in this seat.
Like the book about 2 kids. What can you say about a guy like you said, an 86-year-old guy, coming out convicted felon, that sort of thing? Well, you know, he is in it, so we got to deal with it. But I will continue pushing my conservative principles, my business experience, running my business for 30 years. And I know the people of the 6th District will realize that. You know, they'll see what I've got to offer. You know, let's face it, Edwards' time in office was, and I've said it before in interviews, was one of the darkest stains on our state, you know, with the corruption, the increased taxes, that sort of thing. So I don't think the people of the 6th District will even, you know, considering, I'm sure he'll probably get the runoff, everybody's saying he'll do that, but whoever's in the runoff with him, you know, hopefully will go to Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said earlier, I was elected in 2009, so I have a record of 5 years to run on, and I was the only one in the group that had a record, but now that Edmund's in here, I do have somebody else with a record. But I can't add anything more beyond what these gentlemen have said. Whoever makes the runoff should be the candidate, but hopefully it'll be Republicans in the runoff, and we'll do a better job of showing what we are. Mr. Edwards is in the race. I've met him. He is still very politically astute, still very charismatic. However, I spent 13 years putting people like him in jail. He has paid his dues, however, to me, he's just like an alcoholic. You don't let an alcoholic go back into the beer joint after you've got him cleaned up. You don't let the fox back in the hen house when he runs for office again.
I'm definitely resigned to the hope and optimism that we can have 2 Republicans in the runoff, because for me to just accept that it's a given that Trevor's going to be in the runoff assumes a lot about his voting base. And there's just a lot of things that I don't want to take for granted about that voting base that we need to change. So I'm not giving up that we're gonna be able to show we have viable alternatives and the values and the principles that connect with a broad range of voters that a lot of people assume will be his voters will connect with the candidates on this stage and we can do that. And that's my belief, and that's my hope.
Well, first, Gisela, it was such an inspiration to hear your story. And I think your story and talking about Cuba and where it came from and where it is, and you coming over here and being able to really live the American dream inspires me to say that there's no way we're going to let that happen. We're not going to let him get elected. So I believe that regardless of who's in a runoff, if any of these people on the stage were given the opportunity to be in a runoff with Governor Edwards, there's no doubt in my mind that Governor Edwards loses. That said, I believe that I have the strongest contrast, the biggest difference between Governor Edwards. Well, in that case too, 86, 28, lifelong politician, tech entrepreneur, liberal populist, true conservative, represents the politics of the past, represents the vision of the future. But even more importantly than that, what we're doing as a campaign is we've united all three divisions of the Republican Party and of the conservative movement. We've got support from the Tea Party. Tea Party Express came out and endorsed us. Herman Cain. We've got support from the Liberty Movement. Liberty for All that helped Justin Amash get elected, and Tom Massey and Rand Paul. And we also have traditional conservatives like Henson Moore, Bob Livingston, Sean O'Keefe, Jimmy Field, Tommy French, and the list goes on. So I believe it's time for the next generation to stand up and to really unite the conservative movement, all three, because without all three, we're not going to ever be able to win the White House again. We have to unite as conservatives. Thank you.
Well, you know, Edwards, he said publicly that he's Goliath. And so we have to find a David here somewhere. So I'm out there by the stream picking up some stones, you know, getting shots. But it is a biblical comparison, because Goliath, you know, represented evil, and David represented good. And David even rebuked Goliath and said, "Who are you to rebuke the armies of the living God?" And we have to keep our faith strong here. You cannot underestimate someone like Edwards. He's been elected governor 4 times, elected to Congress 3 times. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. And he's been elected all these times, 3 times to Congress, 4 times as governor. And he was investigated all throughout these different terms of service. Now, I have 32 years of public service that's documented, that's honest, that's flawless. He has years of public service too, but their service, you know, in prison and even more than that, there are years and years of self-service when he was supposed to be a public servant, but he's been serving himself. And of course, he was caught on tape, and that was played at his trial. And some of the other people were convicted with him. So, but you have to remember, the average voter doesn't know anything about this. It's all about name recognition. So you can't take anything for granted. You have to be very careful in just attacking Edwards, because Edwards is smart enough. If he's attacked, he will style himself as the victim and play for sympathy, and he's an expert at appealing to that mass jury of people out there that are attuned to him because of name recognition, that don't know all these facts about his past. And so I would take a different approach to Edwards in the television debate. I would be more general, and I would say, Governor, you presided over a culture of corruption, and you enjoyed it, and you were good at it. But we don't need that anymore. That's in the past. We need to move forward. Focus on the future of Louisiana and focus on the future of the nation. Let's not go back to the old political order. That's where Edwards wants to take us, back to the old political order. And we need to resist that and unite and not underestimate the old fox who's in the in-house still.
All right. Okay, question number 2.